Ladies and gentlemen watching, welcome to the new episode of Nice Podcast. Today we are going to discuss on the agenda of the Bangladeshi turmoil and the recent power struggle between the former Prime Minister Hasina Sheikh and the students. On the 5th of August, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of Bangladesh resigned and left the country following extensive and violent protests. The unrest began in July with student demonstrations against a government job quota system, which later escalated into a broader anti government movement. As protesters stormed her official residence in Dhaka, Hasina was evacuated by a military helicopter to India. Interim government is now formed, which is under Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. In this context, we have invited Dr. Smruti Pattanaik. Dr. Smruti Pattanaik is a research fellow at Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. Dr. Pattanaik, we are more than happy and glad to have you here. Thank you for being here with us at NICE, and welcome to our new podcast.
Thank you.
All right. So, Dr. Pattanaik, I have a few questions for you regarding the recent Bangladeshi turmoil and on the agenda of the anti-government protests led by the students. So, can you explain about the recent events that are happening in Bangladesh and the causes of those events?
Thank you for inviting me. I would like to thank NICE Nepal and especially Pramod for inviting me for this particular episode on Bangladesh. As you rightly pointed out, it is the student movement which led to the exit of Hasina, and it was quota reform protest. And I must say, the agitators initially had asked for reform of quota, and very quickly 30% of jobs in government jobs are basically reserved for those people, the offsprings of those who fought the freedom in 1971, the liberation war. And this quota was extended in 2009 to the grandchildren of the freedom fighters. And as a result of various kind of quota, there is also district quota, there is quota for the backward people, like the indigenous people, 1% disabilities quota. So therefore the entire quota takes around 56%. So in a sense, when unemployment is on rise and there is the government jobs are actually seen as lucrative, so obviously the meritorious student, they don't have much chance. And unfortunately, the 2009 the quota which was extended to grandchildren, it was also said subsequently, if the government is unable to fulfill those 30% quota from the freedom fighters offsprings, then that quota will not be open to other candidates. Like for example, if you don't get qualified candidate on a particular category, generally that category is opened to other meritorious student. But in the context of Bangladesh, this was also not open. So obviously, as you said, it was the student quota movement, quota reform movement, coupled with massive corruption, which one saw in Bangladesh. And also there was dissatisfaction regarding the last few elections, and especially the last one, which opposition had boycotted. So in a sense, all this actually got together and played a role. And moreover, what added fuel to fire is killing of 200, more than 200 youths, in the protest. And any government who have such kind of elections, and you can't use force to quell any kind of demonstration. Dialogue is the only way. So all these things taken together resulted in what you saw in the street of Dhaka, which led to exit of Sheikh Hasina.
Mhm. Okay. Dr. Pattanaik, in your anticipation, what do you think will next happen in Bangladesh? And where do you think the country is heading? Like, in which direction do you think Bangladesh is now heading?
See, currently there is effort to have an interim regime because, as you know, already the parliament has been dissolved after Hasina's exit, and there is a new, effort is being made to have a caretaker regime in place. Not exactly caretaker, interim regime. That is what the term which is being used Professor Muhammad Yunus, who is the Nobel laureate for peace, is supposed to take charge of, to be the head of that interim administration. And that was one of the major demand of the students, that they see in Yunus a honest person who have worked for the development of Bangladesh in terms of microcredit, which played a very significant role in upliftment of women in Bangladesh. So therefore, he is the person who is acceptable. I think at this point of time, Bangladesh is looking at people who are acceptable to the general public, and also the students who can, lead the interim regime. Because unless and until you have a regime which is in place, which is considered as a regime not corrupt, not having any vested political interest, but their only interest is to deliver the election and also the stability in Bangladesh. So that I would say that it is still in process. The second is regarding the direction which Bangladesh is taking. I think at this point of time, when you look at developments within Bangladesh, you see that the violence is continuing even now. There is, you see a lot of social media posts where, there is news of houses being looted, some houses being put in fire. So the demonstrator, they are taking venting their anger against both the minorities and also those people who are close to the ruling regime. So the one in on the one hand, the student demonstration was that, you need to have accountability, you need to have get people into account. And now, the same kind of unaccountable violence is happening. And this is not what the student perhaps had expected. It seems like a complete breakdown of law and order. The police is not acting. Some of the police people are also hiding. They have a new police chief, and the police chief yesterday had given a call for all the police officers and the constables to join the respective police station. So I hope probably the order will be in place probably within a day or two, which actually, then probably Bangladesh will move towards election, because the constitution says within 3 months the election has to happen. And obviously, I expect that all the political parties need to participate, because of non-participatory nature of the past elections, and also rigged election had landed Sheikh Hasina in this kind of situation. So I hope it will be a participatory election, open to all political parties, irrespective of who was in power, who was not in power. Let people choose. If they don't want to choose Awami League, let them not choose. But it should be a choice for the people to exercise who is going to rule Bangladesh in the next after the next election.
So, so Muhammad Yunus, he just left France yesterday and now is heading into Bangladesh to lead the interim government. So, what are your expectations from him for the interim-led government by him as the chief advisor?
First is restore order. There should be law and order, which needs to be restored. Violence must stop. Violence must stop, both against the minorities and also those who supported the Awami League. Let the judiciary take charge. Let them try whoever was involved in corruption, in violence. Let that be a judicial trial. So therefore, there cannot be a people trial in a country which is a sovereign country, and has rule of law. I won't say that Bangladesh doesn't have a rule of law. It has a rule of law. So therefore, the first thing for the administration is restore order. Second thing for the administration is to move towards election after having dialogue with all political parties.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so how do you perceive the roles of global and regional superpowers, on the ongoing Bangladeshi turmoil and the power struggle?
I would say that the Americans are the only one who have welcomed the army back in power, and that actually surprised me. Technically, it was US which had said Bangladesh is not a democracy, therefore Hasina was not invited to the summit of democracy, though many of the dictators were invited. And ironically, there is a support for the army rule. Obviously, US has his own calculation. It was always critical of Bangladesh, and I've always used the human rights issue as far as Bangladesh is concerned. But then again, if I look at it, US also support a regime in Israel. So so therefore I find the irony. Of course, every country have their own national interest, so it is pursuing its own national interest. The thing is that the Chinese have not been, have not issued any kind of statement. They must be watching the development in Bangladesh very, very closely. They have very close relationship with Bangladesh military. They are the second largest supplier of weapons to the Bangladesh military. So obviously, in geopolitical term, if I look at it, if it is a gain of American, then obviously Chinese will be very, very careful about this kind of regime change. India is watching with a lot of caution, concern, and it's, as you have seen yesterday, Foreign Minister Jaishankar said in the parliament that they are concerned about especially the attacks on minorities, attack on public property, looting which is happening. This is very criminal elements have also got into it to take advantage, and burning of houses, burning live people. Some of my friends in Bangladesh tells me that there is a large scale looting and burning which is going on. So obviously India will be definitely concerned, and as a neighbor, it wants stability in Bangladesh. So let us see. We hope that in India that Bangladesh soon returns to a kind of stable order, and also return of a electoral government in Bangladesh.
Yeah, so as we move to the end of the segment, I have one last question for you. So previously, and this question was asked to Sheikh Hasina during like 2022 September when Sri Lanka was in the same position. So how do you think, like previously we have witnessed such similar cases in Afghanistan and Sri Lanka, and now we are having a very similar case in Bangladesh. So do you believe that there's some sort of risk of these phenomena, like outspreading in other South Asian nations?
I would say, Sri Lanka President Gotabaya was democratically elected. He had a majoritarian government, and compared that to Bangladesh, the situation is different. Yes, the post removal of the government, of the regime in power, and the aftermath is exactly the same. Getting into the president palace in Sri Lanka was replicated in Bangladesh. So obviously, in that is where I think the similarity ends, and I hope the kind of development post. This kind of revolutionary development we saw in Sri Lanka, I hope it is not repeated in Bangladesh. Sri Lanka was in a very bad economic situation. Bangladesh is not in that kind of crisis. So therefore, there will be difference, and I'm sure Bangladesh will return to democracy. Spreading to other countries, I would very quickly say I don't see any chance of this spreading to any other country. Each country has a very different political system and very different kind of. Nepal has seen Jan Andolan 1 and 2. It's a very different character. So we should not equate that's happening in Bangladesh will mean that will spread to other countries. No.
I hope so, it doesn't hopefully spread in other countries, or we hopefully don't want to witness such similar cases in any other, nations, not only in South Asia, but also all around the world. Dr. Pattanaik, it's been such an honor having you on our new podcast. Thank you so much for your insights, invaluable insights indeed. And it was a pleasure having you here. So thank you so much for being very generous with your insights and your time. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nice Nepal.